Facebook. Looks like we are going live. Okay, here's the famous clap. Welcome to the Mortgage Coach Mastermind Productivity Call. We do this every Friday, and I am so excited because we have a special guest with us. Tristan, what's up, Tristan?
Doing well. How's everybody?
Good. We should probably mention how we're missing a few people. So Dave and Todd are traveling. They will not be with us today. So you have Tristan and I. So please be interactive, put questions in the chat. He and I are going to talk all things about data, media, truth, and reframing messaging. So Tristan, we just kind of introduce yourself, let people know where you are, kind of how long you've been in business, and kind of what the market is like today.
Tristan Sherrill, Your Loan Pro, website, brand forever. Been in mortgage for, I guess it's 22 years for me. In the Dallas area, run a branch here, and been through all the cycles, and this is another one. So we've got to constantly be adjusting and changing and adapting to what the market brings us. And I don't know that any industry does that more than mortgage.
So that's actually a really good point. I mean, I didn't realize you'd been doing this for 22 years. So you've been through several of those charts that we see when we talk about like the past recessions and what has that done to interest rates and home prices. So for those of us, because I wasn't in the industry then, how does this market, and even with what activities you're doing today, and you are a branch manager, so you're leading a team, how does this compare to say 08?
I think that there's, you could say there's some similarities in that it is a harder market. But like 08, there were still a lot of opportunities. When I look at, what we do. And so for me, it's kind of the message of home ownership is important, just in, how I grew up and some of that stuff. And I talk to agents a lot about kind of the nobleness of what we do. We help people create wealth. The average homeowner has 40 times more wealth than a renter. The average American at retirement, 83% of their wealth comes from their home equity, not pension, retirement. We help people do that. Not to mention, the sense of community, the studies on how much better the kids do in a stable home. And so all of those are pieces that I think are important to keep in mind. And so when we look at the market today, while it is harder, I think there's more opportunity because there's friction points. In a fantastic market where everything's going great, most of the people watching this are probably actively, looking to improve their business and learn and be a better advisor. But in a great market, it's hard to get that message out to anybody because they're busy and everything's going great. When you have a market that's kind of where we are now, you've got more opportunity. I don't, any LOs out there getting way more recruiting calls. I know.
Oh my gosh.
Well, why?
My feed, I think in my feed, when I'm scrolling on social and just with the number of loan officers that we get to help, the number of people making moves right now is crazy. So I bet you guys are all getting recruiting messages like crazy.
When you look at it though, why is that happening? And it's because in a time of despair, people are more likely to listen to you. So, you've got, when we talk about partners, why would they listen to us now versus last year? And that's the opportunity. And it's mindset. You've got, there's a little more despair versus last year was comfortable. It's anxiety versus assurance. In a great market, they're busy, they're comfortable, and they don't need anything. But now with the, uncomfortable situation that a lot of, our partners find themselves in, they're looking for hope, an advantage, a solution. And so whether you're that solution for them or not, who knows, but they're more likely to listen to you. And that gives you the opportunity to go in. Now, I tell everybody.
Can I just comment on that one part there? Because I was scrolling on TikTok last night and I saw this little glimpse of Simon Sinek, and I love Simon Sinek. If you guys haven't read the book, Start With Why. It's a phenomenal book. And I think even Dave interviewed Simon like years ago, because I still have pictures of it on my phone that I put in different albums. But on the TikTok last night, he had said, he was with a friend and they were hungry and there was free bagels and there was a long line. And he had said something to his friend and the friend was like, yeah, but there's a long line. And Simon
Right.
was like, yeah, but there's free bagels. And so his point of that message was he saw the opportunity of the free, that's all he could see, Simon.
Right.
But his friend, all he could see was the long line. So it's so
Right.
powerful in what you choose to see and how much of what you focus on is what you'll get. And it really drives some of the actions that you take. So sorry to cut you off there. I
Right.
just thought that was such a
No,
powerful statement.
great point, because if you look at that same thing, a person who had breakfast before meeting them isn't interested in that line, but somebody that's starving, that line's no big deal. And that's kind of where we are now. Last year, nobody was starving. This year, they're hungry and they're looking for somebody that can kind of throw them that lifeline and give them something to cling on to, maybe an advantage, something like that. Builders are a great example. If anybody knows, last 2 years, builders had no interest in talking to you. And that's a hard deal anyway. They've got kind of an in-house deal. But cancellations are around 30% for most builders this year. They were 2% last year. So they've got inventory stacking up. And what I've found is builders that would have no interest in talking to me last year, they'll talk to me now. And I don't know that I'm going to land the builder. There's no guarantee of that, but it's nice to be able to be in the game and have the opportunity.
So true. I had presented in front, and just so that you guys know, Tristan is in the Plano area, and he could literally throw a rock to Tom Sherman's office, who's a $200 million producer, Wally Elleberry, who's a $200 million producer, Denise Donahue's at the same company, same location. So that's just like
right across the street. Yeah.
Yeah. So my biggest battle where I would get in my own way, and I don't know how, if this has ever happened to you or maybe other LOs that you lead, but one would think like you have such heavy hitters in such a dense area that like the mind trap of who's going to want to work with me? Like, how should I go out? Do I try to court these new agent relationships? Because what if, in my mind, this is where I was like sabotaging myself. I would think, what if Wally's already courting them? Or what if Tom or the nerd? So how, ironically, when I would talk to Denise about this, she would tell me that she never competes against them. Like ironically, there's so much business out there that ends up being your own like mental mind trap. But what about the LOs that you work with? Like if they're new and they don't have the experience, how are they going out and are they cold calling? Are they using social media? Are you guys doing classes? Like how do you make it right now when it's slim pickings?
I mean, it's really just back to basics and prospecting, and you build that up as you go. You create your your scripting, and you hone in your value proposition, and it's harder at first, and you get better at it just like anything else you do. And I've actually got one of my LOs that has taken Todd's class. I think she's on her third time. And so
good. The win by noon operating system, that one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And she's doing fantastic. She's growing much faster than what we see, a lot of times LOs will do. And it's because she's doing the activities. And that's what we're telling people today, though, is, it's a harder market, and it's all about the activity, not the results right now, because if you concentrate on the results, it's going to be a little bit discouraging. But if you just do the activity, I mean, think about it. If you wait until, hey, the market's good, now I'm going to start cold calling and reaching out in my sphere and doing all those things, it's harder to get them. Right now, go out, get the conversations, start creating those connections and those relationships. And then, even in a down market, you're going to get more than your share that way. So you've got to just work on, and we're excited about being able to work on systems and processes that, we have really good systems and processes, and some of those got crushed under the weight of the volume of the last 2 years. And so we're like, all right, we got to reinforce those and do better. But I think that if you look at it with that mindset that if I do all the right things, don't get me wrong, it's definitely going to be harder, but the payoff at the end of it is much greater than it would be in a comfortable market.
And that's what I love about the One by Noon planner the most, is because
Right.
it actually physically makes you keep track of your activities. And I will say, and I was guilty of this for many years too. It was hard to get into the habit, but if you don't track what you do, like how
Right.
many social posts are you making a week? Are they reels? Are they stories? Are you giving out comments and likes? How many phone call conversations are you having? Are you actively prospecting? Are you doing like all those activities? It's like, how do you know which activities to double to
Right.
possibly get a fraction? Because we know if there's less business out there, you're going to have to do more volume of the activities to
Yeah,
get.
without that data,
It's,
you can't tell which one is your greatest ROI, and that's where you should be
yeah,
spending 80% of your time. So otherwise, you're just spread out everywhere and spinning your wheels a little bit. So, Todd's system, it's one of the best accountability systems, and it's literally taken her from, I think it was month 4, she did her first $1.5 million month. So that's
wow,
unique for a new LO, but
yeah,
she's making the calls and she's doing the activities, and a lot of people don't. So
that
I
is the
think,
biggest kicker. It's like you still, sometimes we know what to do. Like I
right,
know I should not eat Oreos at night. I shouldn't do it.
right,
In fact, Robert, don't get mad at me or tell your wife that I eat Oreos at night. But I know I shouldn't. I'm like, I know I should be eating healthier and going to the gym and I want to lose a couple of pounds. Then, and I could eat salad and I'm like, but I go for the burger. And it's like,
right.
I know I shouldn't. So it's so hard sometimes. That's always been my
Well,
fascination of just watching, why do people do what they do when we know better and we even know how, but then we
part
still
of that's just the
don't.
brain. The
Yeah.
brain has a hard time determining the results of today, or the activities today that'll take place. And so what your brain looks at is, I shouldn't eat this burger, but I'm not really getting, it's not like an immediate impact, and I can do better tomorrow. And so it's you just kind of trick yourself, and we CLOs do that a little bit too. They're, you know, the market we're in now, there's that anxiety with them, and they've got this kind of, you got to just stay out of that mindset of this doom and gloom, or you're going to lay on the couch and eat cheeseburgers instead of doing the activities that'll make you successful.
Well, and that kind of leads me to the point of really the title of this call and why I'm so passionate about making sure that we are filling minds with truth, like truth in data,
Mhm.
truth in numbers. Do we have crystal balls and do we know exactly what the future holds? No. I mean,
Right,
every economist may have a little different spin of what we think is going to happen, but we all can be the guide and look at history and past data so that we can have an educated opinion. That
right,
doesn't mean it has to be exactly correct, but it's using data also infused in our marketing so that we can help create more confident home buyers that make
right.
better decisions. Because I've always, and I used to tell clients this even when I practiced, that and you've probably seen this because we were coached by the same person, but if you have a truth antenna and you
Mhm.
go and you seek advice, that person is going to make decisions based off the advice that they're given. And you usually don't
Right,
know if it's good or bad advice until time. And so
right,
I could go to very transactional type lender who's more of an order taker, and they give
yep,
me,
yep,
some options on a itemized fee worksheet. Doesn't show me cost over time or doesn't help me understand, the strategy of money. Or I could go to someone like yourself or your team who's going to help kind of almost give me a paradigm shift of interrupting some patterns that weren't taught in school and maybe is against what parents have taught you, of like you have to put 20% down. But that level of advice is going to cause me to make different decisions, which is going to give me a different result in the end.
right.
And so I think we need to set the record straight because I had made a post in the Mortgage Coach group and I also posted it on my Facebook, and I've
Right.
seen this meme go around like
And you were
crazy. Now there's
blasted,
another one. Huh?
and you were blasted for it. Then that's,
Oh, no, if
remember,
anyone would have read the caption, I had said, could someone
right,
please provide a TCA? Because I don't originate anymore, but
right,
I see this. It was this Elon Musk post about let this sink in. And there's now been another one that's like a blue and it's like buying beginning of the year versus now. And everyone's beating up the post saying these LOs aren't using the right disclosures and blah, blah, blah. Instead of
Well,
being part of the noise, I wanted
yeah,
people to help teach. And you happened to be one, along with a few others, who sent me a video helping
right.
me understand things that I had never even thought of. And I like to think I consume this stuff. I mean, I do. I consume it like it's the oxygen that I breathe. But your
Right.
breakdown of looking at multiple different angles was fantastic. So that was another reason why I wanted you to be on to. And I don't know if you're willing to share kind of
Yeah.
how you put that together, but let's just set the record
Yeah.
straight, people, with that
Well,
darn
it
meme.
is better, right?
Yes.
That all came about because when you think about it, buying a home in a good market is scary. There's a lot of anxiety for a buyer. It's the largest, most complex financial transaction most people have ever made. And so when you look at this market, there's a whole new level of reluctance and uncertainty and resistance, and when I looked at, we had over 80 first-time homebuyers last year that couldn't win a home because they didn't have a home to sell. It's 50 to 100,000 over list. And so
And this
where
is
did
of
they go?
your people, like just your team.
Yeah, but
Wow.
now that they don't have to do that 50 or 100,000 over, where are they now? Well, they're scared because the message from the media and everything is doom and gloom. And look, that sells clicks. Media sells fear. That's how they make their income. And you've got the economy, you've got, housing, or homes losing value. Are you a dummy to buy today? Rates are higher. This is a horrible time to buy. And what we know is that, we know deep down that buying a home is always a great financial decision. I mean, 2/3 of America's wealth comes from real estate. There's huge benefits, even with higher rates. And so
But do you think,
Mhm.
even in the beginning of this year, and this is just us just shooting the shit right now. Sorry,
Right.
Robert, I said shit. Do you think is it always a good time? Like, it is going 100,000 over? Is
So
that, is there ever a time when it's
I
not?
do think so. I mean, I think that when you look at, uh, if your alternative is to rent, you look at that, let's say you rent for
Mm,
3 more years, you're gonna, the difference in that is not going to make sense.
true.
Now, if you're in a home right now where it's comfortable and you want to move up, but now you're worried about the economy, this may not be a good time to, sell your home and get into a new one. But when we look at the numbers of it, I do think that, and really what I found from this is that there were benefits in both ways. And so, and for us, it's a competing message. So, you've got this fear and confusion. And I've told realtors for years, they've got to dial in their message to the client, because a customer who has fear or confusion won't pull the trigger. And so everyone else is telling them, it's these varied messages. He said, she said, yes, no, good, bad. And the
And those
problem,
memes.
yeah, well, and the problem that I saw was everyone's telling them, it's editorials, it's opinions. Then for the customer, it's who do I believe? Now you've got confusion. So how do I convey a message where I stand out? And the thought was, instead of telling them, what if I show them? That way it's not an opinion, it's data. And I automatically have more legitimacy, and I cut through kind of the noise and the chaos. And so your Instagram was my latest inspiration. So
Oh boy.
if you want, I'll share my
Yeah.
screen and walk you through kind of my thought process on it here.
And I'm gonna put my original meme in the chat just so you guys can see which one we're talking about that created such a buzz. So everyone can kind of follow along. And guys, don't forget, if you guys have questions for Tristan, oh good, here it is right
Does it
here.
show up?
Yep.
So
Yep.
here was the meme. So Deborah posted this meme, was it last week? And all these people are like, this is false, this is wrong, this isn't true. And I immediately was curious, is it true? It's catchy, but is it true? Is it a horrible time to buy a home, or is it a great time to buy a home? And it's these conflicting messages that I really wanted to look into. And so what I did was, let's break down the meme and, look at its validity, which is, kind of weird when you think about it. I'm trying to prove a meme. But I decided to use an example of 650,000. And the reason I did that was a price point last year that we saw very few times did that sell for at least for less than 100 over. And I think that's a price point in this market where 30 under is not unreasonable. And so that's why I picked that as my price point, is that 650. So again, didn't see many homes go below that. But if it was worth 650 and you paid 750 in 21, and if today it's a different story, less competition, now we're back to a normal market. Now, you would pay 620 if it's 30 under. So a big difference in that piece of, I used 20% down on both to keep it simple. And immediately jumped out to me that the loan amount was different by $104,000. So pretty drastic. And so what I did was I looked at, 2021 had some of the whole time low rates, and keeping it with the meme, I did 2.99 and I bumped it up to 7 for 2022 just to compare those. And so if you see the immediate result of that is look at the payment difference. And so you've got, and immediately that's why all these people are on social media saying, this is wrong, you're lying, this is not factual, because this is where most people stop. 2526 versus 3200, it's $700 difference, that's $9,200 a year. Obviously it's not true, right? Mm-hmm. So we can kind of look at that and say, all right, we're looking at, rates are probably going to be, most economists think rates are going to come down in the next 18 to 24 months. So if we take that out 24 months where, we think you can refinance, that's an $18,000 difference. And so it's immediately to everybody, the clear winner is you should have bought last year. Mm-hmm. Well, kind of in my heart, what I knew was that anytime you're buying a home, I think it's a great financial decision. And what I couldn't figure out is, why is buying the home right at a better price? How could that be worse? So we'll take out the fact that if you did buy in 2021, your 20% down is an extra $26,000. So even at the end of 2 years, you're still $6,000 in the benefit. But that was money already spent. We don't want to worry about that. But what we're looking at now is just kind of cash flow and short-term benefits. I wanted to look at, what does this look like over time? So I wanted to see, what's the investment game? I mean, as a mortgage advisor, it's important that we talk to people about that piece of it, right? And this is where the story flips, and where this
right here was the ninja move of, and it's the power of curiosity. I mean, the mm-hmm. fact that you asked yourself, you led with, how could buying a home at a better value like today, how could that be better? And so it's getting, those are the types of questions that even your clients have. And if we could focus on what are those questions renting space in our clients' heads, and maybe it's even the pillow talk at night that they don't always tell you. This is exactly what I tell clients we need to be posting on social, because it shows you that you're a true mortgage advisor, that you think differently, and that you are addressing what's actually valuable to them, but you're doing it through data. It's not to manipulate, it's not to persuade. But this right here, guys, y'all pay attention to this, because this was game changer.
Well, and what I realized is, and what's funny is, on your meme, most of these people attacking you were realtors and lenders. So these aren't just like customers that don't know what they're doing. These were mostly realtors and lenders.
That's what was kind of scary, Tristan.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, wait a minute, we need to do more education on this right here of strategy, because I got nervous of, if there's so many different views and again, based off maybe different levels of education or leadership, that kind of scared me of what kind of advice was being given out there. So you're exactly right.
Well, and if you think about it, for the average customer, that's all they're going to do. Go to any mortgage calculator. Okay, if I did this 20%, it's going to cost me this. Yep, it's better to wait till rates come down. And that's really what most customers will see. But when I looked at this and said, okay, so, and I used, didn't make up numbers. I used actual historical forecasted appreciation based on the county I'm in. And based on that, if I bought a home that was worth $650, not what you paid for it, but it was worth $650, it would be worth $701 in 24 months is what that showed. I think that appreciation level was 3.88%. So if we did that, and now the home in 2 years is worth $701, you paid $750, you're almost $50,000 in the hole. All right, well, you did pay down the mortgage a little bit. We've got some amortization, about 13,000. You're negative 35,000 in the hole. Now add to it the extra 26,000 in down payment, it's even greater. When we look at the other alternative, we have 701 as the value. Again, you paid 620, you've already got 81,000, 10,000 in mortgage balance payoff. So what it ends up being is, in the 2021 example, high cost, low rate, you paid, you basically saved $18,000 to cost yourself 35. Whereas in 2022, if you bought, good deal on the house, higher rate, what you did is you spent $18,000 to make 91. And so when you kind of look at that piece of it and think, if somebody came up with you and said, hey, I've got an investment opportunity, and what you've got to do is pay me 18,000, or I tell you what, even just give me $750 a month for the next 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, I'm going to give you $90,000. Most of us are going to take that. And I think that's where we proved. And when I say that there were benefits to both, and I was excited about that as well, look, from a cash flow and affordability, buying power, that low rate is a better deal. But with lower rates comes more demand, and you're typically going to pay higher prices. And when you look at the long-term benefits, it is drastically better to buy today and then look to refinance later on. And I went on to kind of show what would it look like if we go out 10 years to see what that looks like. And you have to understand, you're paying 9,000 or more, so it's going to catch up eventually. And the 299 is, but hardly anybody ever is in a mortgage more than really 7 years. So it's unlikely that.
So on that,
30 years.
Will you go back to the last screen real quick? I just want to make sure that so the first example, if they're putting 20% down on the 750,000, that's 150,000 down payment.
Right.
So that you're saying that's the upfront cost. Then you have your cost over the 2 years. So that's the 24 months. So if we just said
I didn't even put down payment in there, and I'm going to probably redo this a little bit, because this is just appreciation, gain, and loss. But if I added that, again, I've paid 26,000 more at the onset in down payment in 21. So if that's the case, I would be adding $26,000 to this $35,000 loss.
Well, I was trying to think, okay, here was my upfront investment. Kind of like if I was going to buy this property and this was my return after 2 years. So I would pay 150,000. What would be my ROI 2 years later versus the one today where, your down payment was the 620, so 20%, so 124,000 was your initial investment. And this is what you could earn as a net just from like investment ROI.
Even on that, you could even look at it, take everything else out of the picture and say, but if I bought today, it's going to cost me 18,000 more in monthly payments, but I saved 26,000. So at the end of the 2 years, I'm still about $8,000 ahead. And that's when we think we can refinance to a better deal anyway. And so when we kind of looked at, well, what does it look like if we stay in that for, 10 years? I talked to him about, the importance of understanding that you want to date the rate. But then I also wanted to look at, but what if, what's your cost of waiting? So we looked at all of that, and I wanted to be fair on this. So I did this on a downward rate. You bought today, 6 months rates are 0.5% higher. And then every 6 months they drop a point, so that in 2 years we're at 3.5%. Yeah, you're saving roughly $10,000 a month. But even with that savings, you've lost $61,000. So
now, is there
I wanted to focus more on, instead of like, if you didn't buy in 2021, it's too late. You don't have a time machine. But let's say, but the mindset for a lot of people is, but I'll wait till that comes again. And I want people to understand that by doing that, you're not winning. You're actually losing money. If you're renting, you're paying 100% interest. So why are you worried about 7% or whatever it is?
Is there any concern for those who wait 18 to 20 months of, will the like those who are saying
what if rates don't go down, right?
Well, no, I mean, what if the value's not there? Like, what if property values? I know Ivy Zellman was predicting,
and it could happen. But when we look back over the last 50 years, Properties only lost value one time, and that was in 2008. And it was because a few factors, property being one of the main reasons. These crazy mortgage products kind of put us in that. But we also had a situation where the declining population and more new housing starts than almost 3 times more than the average. So you had an oversupply and under demand, and then you had all those foreclosures. So yeah, it could go down, but it's unlikely. And every recession going back to 1970, we see housing flat on a couple of those, but typically housing still goes up in a recession. And at the end of the recession is where we see the greatest level of appreciation. So again, we don't have a crystal ball, but unfortunately, if everybody just said, hey, we don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to wait till rates are 2.99, you got to have a lot of people renting and missing out on the ability to create wealth. And then the other question becomes, well, what if rates don't go down? Let's say they go up. Well, then if you bought today at 7% versus, let's say you waited 2 years and they were 10%, now the home prices are higher and the rates are higher. What's your alternative? Just keep renting and never earn any wealth? So it's still not a bad time to buy, in my opinion. And then we go into this a little bit and we talk about the strategy of, what if buying power is your issue? What if, because rates have gone up, you can't afford that $3,300 payment? Maybe what we do then is look at a strategy where maybe we date the house, even where we still get you into something where we're creating some equity. And we can see that, if that were to happen, let's say you couldn't buy the 650, you bought one that was 500, just to build that equity. But now when we get to that market, let's say it's low rates and it's competitive again, wouldn't it be better to go into it with $148,000 to get that house? So especially first-time home buyers, because if they wait and it's a crazy market, they don't have equity from a home to throw to the seller for the privilege of buying. And then I go in and I talk to them about rent and just how crazy rent has been over the last 2 years, and the net gain of renting versus buying. And then, we're all-time low vacancies, et cetera. And then, again, I think really there's benefits to both, but I think we've proved that it is not a horrible time to buy. And this is in actuality, not a bad time. And I'll show you real quick here.
While you show us the next one, we have a few questions that have come in. Paul had asked, would this presentation be available? Would you be willing to share the link in the chat?
Yeah. So I did, and I think I put the link to this in here. So what I did, this is how I share it. And I don't know if you guys use Lender Launchpad, but it is the greatest thing ever. It is a complement to MortgageCoach. It's kind of a delivery system. I love it because a lot of our customers, if it's an investor or they're looking at a lot of options, we'll actually do multiple mortgage coaches for them. The customer gets to keep this link, so when we talk to them down the road, we can kind of reference back to it really easily. But on this, I did the video, and so I did it as a Loom video. So what I walk through you guys, it's my little face here kind of talking to people as we go through it. But then I also wanted to look at today's strategy and tomorrow's possibilities. And when you open that up, and let me click it off so I'm not.
And I'll put the Lender Launchpad link for anyone who's curious on setting up a demo. It is a very high-tech, modern way to deliver information, like Tristan said. And Tristan mentioned how he's refining and he's really become a master of his process and systems. And I know you're a part of, I think it's the technology team, even at Thrive Mortgage. Right. And Denise still brags about you today of you showed her smart sheets, which I even now use in my business. But Lender Launchpad is a great way to deliver and marry content where it's just one link. So you can have your TCA link, you could have your YouTube video to help explain things, you could have your home buyer's guide. It's just the packaging of how you deliver. So
and that's what on this, I have that video. I also have a video that basically goes through and charts and graphs what the past has been and why we can expect rates to go down, et cetera. But then I also want people to understand what those possibilities look like. And so what we've done on this is put together just a TCA with regard to this data. So what I've showed them is if you're buying today at 7%, that's that $3,300 payment. But what if we, instead of doing 30 under, we ask the seller to do 20 under and pay for a seller buy down? Now we're getting it kind of close to where we were going to be, right? Closer to that, $2,500, $2,600 payment. And then what I wanted to show them also is, look, again, no guarantees, but let's say rates go back to kind of what would have been a normal market had it not been for COVID, and in those mid fours. Well, now we're back at that 2,500. And so that's what we're looking to do for you. And what if the economists are right and it goes down even farther? Now we're here, but at the same time, you've earned all that equity. And now you've got a home that's worth $700,000 versus having to now go out and buy one at 700, even at a lower rate. So the TCA is an important piece to kind of explaining it all. And then, we did this to just show them this is my thought process on why that's important, or why we think, and again, I'm showing them data on the whole deal on why we think this is going to be about an 18 to 24 month process before we see lower rates.
This is awesome. I want to echo to everyone that this is, that just like there's a housing market shift, the same thing's happening with marketing. And, the days, and I won't go through the whole history lesson, but we've really seen 3 different shifts where the first shift was the end of lies, when there wasn't any agency that used to monitor ads, and you'd see these bold claims of like, take this magic pill, lose 30 pounds, and the pill could have been snake oil for all you knew. And then you had the invention of the internet, and we called it the lie of secrets, because you would have people who maybe, in fact, I think it was 2007 when McDonald's had their first loss ever. And you can stop sharing your screen if you want, Tristan.
I can't find the button.
Come on now, tech guy. There we go. So we had the end of lies, and then we had the end of secrets, because you had people who were able to go online and write different blogs about what really happened. And for this example was McDonald's, and it could have come from an employee and the reality is people can write reviews, or people can write really whatever they want. And it may not be true. It could be true to them, but it may not actually be true. And so now what we're seeing is really the last rebellion of the end of control. And it's where consumers today, they just don't want to be marketed to. They don't want to be sold. The default is distrust. So if you're just a talking head on social, and I see a lot of the same types of posts and reels where everyone's starting to look the same, and it's always starting with a hook, and it kind of reminds me of that first rebellion that we saw, where you can't just be a talking head. You need to show that you are a strategist. And that's why I'm so passionate about TCA Tuesdays, is because it creates that theme day for you to incorporate in your social media, or if it's talking to a consumer or an agent, how are you using data? Just like Tristan just showed us, guys. Could you imagine if Tristan was just talking to somebody and telling them this as lip service, where the whole time people are going to be thinking, is this true? Are you just saying this because, let's face it, you get a commission at the end of this? Of course, you're going to tell me now is the best time to buy. Like, that is what people think. They don't trust that you have their best interest in mind, because they're looking at you as a salesperson. But as soon as you can bring your tech stack, and Sosi did this too with his presentation, of really using data to help reframe maybe improper messaging from the past, or what the media is consistently pushing out. It's controlling that narrative, but taking it to a level of, we want you to make the most informed decision. And look, we're not saying we have all the answers. We can just go off of what content I'm consuming. So you're studying economists. You can tell that you are studying every single day so that you can have a relevant opinion, so that you can guide your clients to make more confident decisions, which to me is going to keep them loyal and sticky to you, because they actually feel like you know your stuff, and it's not just lip service, because you have the data to prove it.
Well,
so where
it is, it's about trust today. And every, and I had one of my LOs came in and said, everybody just wants to talk about rate. Well, there's a reason for that, because every jingle, every commercial, everything's rate, rate, rate. And what I explained to her was, people ask you about rate because they don't know what else to ask about. But ultimately what they want is somebody they can trust, that they know is going to take care of them and look out for their best interest. because they're scared in a good market and especially in a bad market. And so we have to convey that message and let people know, hey, let me show you the numbers on why I think this is good for you. And if all you're giving people is stuff they can find on Google, you're useless. So kind of like the lenders and the realtors that were kind of attacking you on this is wrong. All they did was that first part, but you've got to look at all the angles, and you've got to look at the short term and the long term, and all of those pieces. And that's how you convey that message. Now, my issue, and before we run out of time, what I wanted to get with you on is, I think to me, this is the easy part. The hard part is then conveying that message at scale. And so, like you said, the first option is, social media is kind of the best way to do some of that stuff. But if I'm not a social media influencer like you, so
Yes, not yet.
I'll get 30 to 50 people maybe that see it. So that's really not scaling it, and maybe less than that, because if I post that whole video, it's
okay. But hang on. Can I just pause on that? Because it pains me when I hear loan officers think that their social media is not working because maybe they post a video with this and they get 30 views.
Right.
We have to remember that social media is interest-based and social-based. So when you look at your pool of interest from your ideal audience, that is, let's face it, people who are buying homes in the DFW area that speak English probably, who have a job, who have at least a credit score of, let's say, above 620, like your pool of people interested in mortgage is like this big. So 30 views on that video is almost the equivalent to like 100,000 views on a personal development video, because the pool of interest from a ratio standpoint of the vast majority who is interested in personal development, that's global, versus what you're making. That's where we have to remember, we don't need 100,000 views. We need the right eyeballs from the right people from our ideal audience to see this. And how long would it take you to actually make 30 phone calls or 30 different videos to send out to those people? It's like, doesn't mean that it's not working. And like, even with myself, sometimes I make posts and I'll show people like my Deborah A. Bird account versus my plug and play account. If you had to compare it to like Elon Musk to Tesla, Elon Musk is always going to have more engagement, interaction, and following because it's him as the personal brand. But let's not forget that the brand becomes what your reputation is, and you just need the right people at the right time to see your content. I have people from other countries that will comment and are following me, and that really doesn't do me any good on my Deborah A. Bird account. So it's like, I don't need 20,000 followers. I would rather have less followers of my ideal clients than a whole bunch of people that I really don't know. So, and that's also, I have people who have admitted, and we can run tools for this, where I can see gurus who pay for followers, they pay for likes, they pay for comments, and they pay for views. And so what was interesting is I'm taking a psychological course with marketing, and they were talking about how the number of followers and likes doesn't, even for the millennial and Gen Zs, they don't consider you as a expert just because of the number of followers and likes that you have. In fact, sometimes too many followers, they're thinking you probably bought those. And so then they don't trust. So don't think that just because you don't have the likes, the comments, that it's not working. That's my little rant.
And I'll tell you, that was kind of my first thing was, hey, I want to get this message, because, and I loved the meme. I was like, that's so interesting. But then it was like, oh, it's not true. And then as I dug deeper, and then I really wanted to, like, this is the issue. People don't know this. I got to get this message out to everybody. And actually the idea came from the nerd. So, I wish I was as smart as her. But
I taught her everything she knows. Thank you.
I know, that's what I've heard. But Denise is doing this, and basically she's creating this content. And so what I did was I then sent this out to all my realtors and said, hey, because now they've got the same issue. They need people to understand that it's not a bad time to buy right now. It's actually a good time. And so immediately I had them sharing it. And so that was, several of them put it on their social media, and several of them, are emailing it to their sphere. And so there is that piece, but I'll still admit the social media puzzle still confuses me some. So I'm trying to learn.
Well, I'm your solution to that. So if you two are out there and thinking you need help with social media, that's all we do. So y'all make sure to go to plugandplaysm.com and we will be happy to help. It's truly my passion. Okay, so I want to get to some of the questions in here. Let's see. Showing average appreciation for the county. Okay, here we go. So John said plus ROI. So thank you, John. By the way, he was another one that sent me his Lender Launchpad link and read my caption on this post that I made.
Oh, yeah.
So he said plus ROI when you figure in that they also had to pay the 100,000 over appraised value to the 650,000. Marina asked, where are you seeing experts talk about rates in the 3s in 2 years? Would love to read more info.
So a lot of it, so MBS Highway, they've had a lot of panelists on. They've had people talk about the fact that, so just quick, I mean, and if you want to go to that Lender Launchpad, you can watch the rates for session video. It kind of explains this piece, but you look at,
and I did put that Lender Launchpad link in the chat. So Marina or anyone else, we'll make sure that that's in the comments on Facebook and on the YouTube channel as well, in case anyone's watching this after the fact. But if you click on that link from Tristan, you can then navigate to that video.
Yeah, and the thing was, you know, you look at the Fed and it's a boom or bust organization, and right now they're in bust mode. They're doing everything they can to grind the economy to a halt because inflation's out of control, and inflation is what creates higher rates. It's really the only thing. It erodes the value, and as you see inflation go up, rates go up. Well, I mean, they've got to get it under control. It's not sustainable. Inflation has to come down. A healthy economy is considered an economy with an inflation rate of 2% or less. And so what some of those panelists have said is because and really the Fed kind of took their eye off the ball. You know, they started the quantitative easing program in March of 2020 as COVID hit, because they were shutting down the economy and they saw we're going to see this economic collapse. So we need to lower rates, create more disposable income so that people survive. The problem with that is the economy didn't get as hurt as everybody thought it would. And they probably should have stopped that, you know, way earlier, but they kept buying 140 billion a month in US Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities for 2 years. And it superheated the economy and created this inflation monster that we have right now. And so I don't know if it's true. And that's why I'm not using those super, you know, that's why I showed an example of 4.5 and 3.5. I do think 4.5 is very reasonable. But the comment was because they had done this quantitative easing so recently, again, in 21 or 20 and 21, a lot think that they're going to have to greatly reduce. And some have even said rates in the twos to be lower than what they were during COVID, because I can't remember the stat, but it's something like 60% of homeowners in America have a rate between, it's like 2.5 and 4.5% or something like that. So
yeah,
and the way the Fed moves from you know, bust to boom is they lower rates, people have costs of goods cheaper, they can refinance, have more disposable income, we can go on Amazon, buy a bunch of junk we don't need, and that way the economy's soaring again. And so, you know, when you just kind of look back at kind of what the Fed playbook has been, that's what it looks like. So do we know if rates will go down? No. But what I do know is if they don't go down, this is still a better time to buy a house than when rates are higher and prices are higher. And if they do go down, you know, and so when you look at a 2-1 buy down, you've got to counsel the customer on, you know, here's the pros of that and here's the cons, and here, you know, you've got to be prepared for this, and you know, what's your cost of living going to look like? And maybe if that is a concern, if they don't go down like we think, maybe we do look at, you know, kind of a new strategy and a lower loan amount, et cetera. So, but that's where it's coming from.
I am actually putting less than 4%. So we made a post on the Modern Mortgage Summit. If you guys aren't following that account on Instagram, make sure you're following that account, because both the Modern Mortgage Summit and Real Estate Summit, we're putting out some of these statistics and more national data. So this one we posted on October 13th, and it shows a chart of 2/3 of the mortgages are less than 4%. that are out there. And I even read on a recent article that 90% of the homes out there are either free and clear, or they have a rate of less than 4%. So that pool of people that are above 4% is slim.
Right. And that's kind of the thinking behind it, because again, for the Fed to grind the economy to a halt and then kickstart it again, they do that by manipulating interest rates. And if you're manipulating down to say 5, and everybody's like, that's still higher than, if it's 75% of the population, that's higher than the rate they have, you're not going to see people take advantage of that, and it's not going to have a drastic impact. But again, there's no crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen. We can just look at, what has history shown us, and we can kind of conclude that there's a logical, idea that could repeat, because that's what history does. But you can't make those guarantees to customers.
Yeah. And, Randall had mentioned on here that he was talking about home prices declining during a recession. He lives in Las Vegas, and they can expect larger price fluctuations than other markets. And yes, Randall, that a lot of the charts that you see is based off the national data. So I have a few slides that I actually taught an agent class yesterday. And what I did, guys, I just pulled up Redfin. So if you're doing masterminds or you're teaching agent classes, my first slide is always just kind of like, where are we at locally? And I pulled up Redfin, and I just did a sort on their filter and said, how many homes were sold in the last 30 days? And then I had the next slide that was, how many price reductions have occurred in the last 14 days? And just in the Plano, Frisco, Allen area, there was like 528, I believe, price reductions in the last 14 days. And then I showed how many active listings right now. And then the last one was, so how many are going to be yours next month? Because even if there was, say, 590 that sold in the last 30 days, well, at a time when everyone's talking about how there's not enough business and we need more business, it's like there's still business being done. So who's doing it, and how do we get you to do?
Well, and going back to kind of Lender Launchpad and MortgageCoach, we're doing a lot of the Lender Launchpad listings for our clients, and doing and I'll send them the flyer and the QR code and the link to that, where they can tell people, hey, instead of dropping the price 10 grand, we're going to show them a permanent buy down, a temporary buy down, and then what their buying power is. And
so can you show one of those so that people can see like what you mean by you're creating listings for agents? Because this would be a great way for trying to court agents to show how you could be a business partner of theirs by solving their biggest problems.
If you've got somebody that's selling, so many of us, go to talk to an agent and they're like, I only do listings. Okay, never mind. This is great, because I can go, awesome, let me show you how I can help you with your listings. In fact, I've just done my first recording with a realtor where we're sending out a presentation for the CMA before they meet with the borrower. And my idea there is, if I can do that piece, now they're selling a home, so obviously they're going to buy a new home, and I've given them all this value. Would that not make it a better deal for them to, or would they not, kind of reciprocate back by talking to me? But here's one that like we just did, and again, it is funny because as I look at some of these, I'm like, it's selling for what? And it looks like that, because prices have gone up so much. But here, let me share my screen again, and hopefully
we have about 5 more minutes until we wrap up. So guys, if you have any other questions, please let us know in the chat and we'll make sure to get to them.
But here you go. So this is one of them, and let me just open the presentation. So this is what goes to the realtor and what their client, everybody sees. So as they get into this, it just looks like an MLS thing. It gives them kind of and the system automatically does all of these things, maps it, you put up to 4 pictures. But then
so the system automatically pulls in like number of bedrooms, the year built, you don't have to put that in, right?
Right. Yeah. The only thing
great.
We have a lot of. So on this one, what the agent hadn't realized is the home is in a USDA approved area too. So customer can do it at 0 down, but what we looked at is at current market 0 down. This is what it looked like. If we did a price reduction for you, of $10,000, now we have a $70 savings. If we do a buy down, it's doubled that. If we do a 2-1 buy down, look at the affordability there. So that was and then I'll show you one that's a little more drastic.
So you're basically creating a property website for your agents, and it then is branded for you, like with your TCA. Is that right? Like every property that they have listed,
and so there's a lot of opportunity, because both that list, I'm helping that agent, I'm getting in front of their seller maybe before they bought a new home, and then maybe who knows how many buyers are coming through this to look at it. And then am I getting a shot at that buyer going, hey, we looked at this home, and can you tell me more about this 2-1 buy down? Or can you tell me more about these strategies? Or we didn't buy this home, but if we bought this, could we do something like that? And so like on this one, they were only going to do, I think it's a 12,000 or so reduction. It's only $55. 2-point buy down was $350. And then on this one, we did the price versus rate because this was actually put together for the seller to see, look what we can do if you offer these options. So this at $730 price, we would be giving them the same buying power with this, just a permanent buy down at $651. And this is an older one before rates had moved up as much. Now, because rates are so high, we've taken this one out, and we're including the 2-1 buy down as an alternative option.
Wow. Will you make sure to put maybe this example in the chat so people can see?
Yeah, I'll do both of these.
That's great. Okay, so let me just make sure we don't have any. Okay, so we just asked, what are you using to do that? So guys, that is, for those who are asking, how is he doing this? It's with Lender Launchpad, and we put a link in the chat.
And if you'll unshare, Deborah, it minimizes the screen, and that button's gone for me for some reason.
I think Robert has to do that. Robert, will you? There we go. Thank you. So if you guys are interested in doing a free demo with Lender Launchpad, if you want to use the same kind of delivery system that Tristan is, then make sure you click that link that we added to the chat. And he also just included his listing for it. So what I love what you just did is, I feel like a lot of agents, they will see a seller buy down strategy, but then they're like, how do we take this to market? Like, how do we get people to then raise their hand and understand that either we can increase their buying power or we can help them with home affordability? And so this is the solution to help your agents market then a property with a seller buy down. So
you have to concentrate on the friction points. And what's a friction point for agents right now? I've got listings they're not selling. If I can help you with that, I'm bringing value, and they're more likely to be willing to talk to me now than they would have been last year, because it was off the shelf in 2 minutes. But and if you guys go to that first presentation, if you scroll to the bottom, it has a bunch of additional resources if you want to check out some of the other stuff we've built out.
Well, we are just about out of time. And Tristan, I am so grateful that you jumped on today. I knew you would be just a master with this stuff. You're part of the tech team, right, with Thrive? Is there like a collaborative group?
I've not been doing as much, but I've been on that committee for a while.
Yeah.
But
so people are asking how
to be asked.
Yes. Well, you're great. People are asking, how can they, if they wanted to email you with some questions, or where could they follow you online for your social media that we will make sure to get pumping soon?
Everything's Your Loan Pro. So website's yourloanpro.com. My social media is Facebook it's Facebook/YourLoanPro. It's @YourLoanPro on Twitter and Instagram. So yeah, please, I need followers. I'm trying to catch up with Deborah here.
So guys, that would be the best way to thank Tristan today, is make sure that you are following him. And if this was valuable, please share it. Make sure you like or comment, even if it's, in the YouTube channel after the fact. And, this is the last one before Thanksgiving. So, we are grateful for Dave and Todd and everyone at the Mortgage Coach and Win by Noon team to consistently have these calls. I know we recently celebrated the 300th episode, and this is just a true example that with consistency, like if you go back and look at some of the very first Mortgage Coach Friday mastermind calls, like some of the internet wasn't working well, the screen wasn't coming through, the audio wasn't great, And it just shows we all start off and we may not be good at the beginning, but when you consistently take action over time, and this has been like a 5-6 year journey, look at what this group has become. And that includes you all who are listening. It's our co-hosts like Tristan who get on here and just share from an abundance mindset of opening up their playbooks so that we can all be better advisors. And so I just want to say, from behalf of Mortgage Coach and Win by Noon, we are grateful for your time and for being a part of this community. And you guys have a great Thanksgiving.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.